hear it over there, or you're just seeing the response? Testing. Okay. Let's talk about the 12 part of the 12 keywords. There's ao lao choi, gua, bung, da, Jim Lim, and Tip Kao. We'll focus on Tip Kao and Jim Lim. We all know this is ao lao choi, but this could be ao lao choi. Ao, hook, grab, pluck. We kind of know the technique is this and then this, but we've trained ourselves where this is ao lao choi, ao lao choi. But as a delineation, it's technically ao lao choi sao. So hook, grapple, pluck, hand. Could be hook, grab, pluck, palm. The whole idea is this, this, and this. That's what makes mantis.
Sure.
Is the aspect of this, and this in each of the techniques. Gua just means to hang up, to take something from lower and hang it up to higher. So if he throws a strike, I'm blocking. It's not high block. The action is me hanging this hand up. I mean, you could also say this is kind of almost a gua, but the idea is hanging something from here up higher. To hang up. Bung means something that's going to crash down, right? So, but we know the bung choi. So this is the technique, but the concept is to crush something down. So if you do like this, that's not technically that's not bung. It's a back fist, but something that you're going to kind of crush down, or do the hammer fist and you're crushing down. Da means to strike. It's anything else in between, whether it's a kick or an elbow strike or a headbutt. It's just a strike, and you just want to strike quickly. Tip Kao means to close in, to close the gap, and then Kao means to lean onto something. Whenever we're dealing with a self-defense combat situation, distance is everything. The whole idea with tip is to close the gap. This is more along the lines of big idea of I need to close this distance, and I can close it by several ways. One is by kicking, and now I've closed the distance. Another one is by putting my hand up. Now I'm closing the distance. I'm taking out all this. I can strike, and I've closed the distance. Where we get in trouble, if you haven't been trained this way, is it's the same thing with a knife defense. A weapon is just, it's an extension of the arm, but the control point is still always at the wrist. Whether it's a dagger, a machete, a bat, the only thing that changes is this distance. When you encounter something like a sharp-edged weapon, obviously the alert should go up higher, but then the focus should not be on the weapon. Your focus should maintain at the wrist, because this is where the control point will be. You should be aware of, is it a small dagger, a pencil, or is it a long machete? Be aware of that. You have to psychologically tune out this issue because you're still wanting to tip Kao to close the gap. If it's a bat or something, I'm not going to do this because then it's hard versus hard, contact on contact. I don't want to get that involved. If he's doing this, then I close the gap and it's on something softer, so I'm not focused on the weapon. I'm focused on the wrist. That's where I'm keeping all my attention, like that. If he does a stab, it's the same thing. I'm focused on the wrist and closing the gap. So I'm not going to focus on the weapon. If I focus on that, I'm going to get cut. So that's part of the tip and the Kao. Going back to the Sinbo, as we engage in the Sinbo, we're now automatically doing a tip to close the gap. And then we disengage, and then we can then close the gap again. And then you think about, from this form, we evade and then kick. Instead of coming right back here, you kick, then we're closing the gap. It's initiating by the kick, and now I've closed the gap. Now, that's from a macro perspective. It's more the position of the body. I'm closing the gap, and now I'm in a tighter range. But then to lean, the standard, the classic way we thought about is, well, I'm now going to do a bong sao, and lean onto the person. So any type of pressure that I'm putting to catch your center is the cow, a tip cow. The cow could also be an uprooting, because I'm still kind of leaning opposite direction, but it's still a cow, is a takedown. To delineate that from the Jim Lim. So Jim Lim means to touch, to make contact. Now we make contact, Jim, and then Lim means to stick. So if you try to escape, I'm following, okay? I'm sticking to it. We want to make sure that when we make contact, it's just the right amount of pressure. It's not too much and not too little. So you're not too soft and you're not too strong. Jim is used to measure. We're measuring instantly as soon as you make that touch. To make that touch, then you can stick. And it's very important in any self-defense mode, you have to make contact. Once you make contact, then with your experience and training, then you know where positionally everything else is. The head, the legs, if they're gonna kick, where the other arm is. And so to Jim Lim, it's offensive and defensive at the same time, because you're making contact to now be able to feel. And that's the whole thing, is the way Sifu Fog taught, is just everything is based off feel. So now, once I make the contact, I can then feel. So if I'm here, then if it's a boxer, they're jabbing left, right, left, I can't do anything because there's no fight, because there's no closing of the gap. In order for a fight to happen, there has to be the closing of the distance. But if he jabs, see, I could still feel and stick. And even if I come in closer, if I kind of cow, then I'm protecting myself as well. It's going to be harder for you to kick if I'm kind of leaning or putting a little pressure on you, leaning a little bit, okay? And I think that's why, like when we practice the Simbo, if we practice the Simbo and you kind of do a little press at the end, you're pushing each other. So you're learning that when you make contact, just that instant measure and that instant press. So that when you're kind of in the habit of, when you lean, then you can kind of get a feel for what's going on with that person. So we have to make contact, to touch, and then we stick. In the most ideal situation, you're trying to feed off of the person's energy that they give you. So then you can yield most efficiently out of the attack. So if he attacks, I could feel this, so now I know, okay, I'm still sticking and measuring at the same time. Now I'm going to one of the soft techniques is the yielding, right? So I can yield, or I can do another technique, is I'm measuring and then I press down. This is kind of the soft technique. The soft aspects of 7-star is the measuring. The measuring, the feeling, because you're getting a lot of information in here. There's so much information that you can gather from here. Even if the person is going to launch a kick, you can feel it here. With enough experience, you've felt enough people who've kicked you, you're like, oh, they're retreating, so you know that they're going to execute a kick, and then through experience, then you learn to close the gap. It goes back to the tip, to close the gap. When you don't tip, and he kicks, then now you have this open room. So you've created the distance for that person to launch an attack. If they retreat or chamber back to kick, and I measure that, then there's no attack because there's no distance. Sure. But when there's distance, then there's room for an attack. Sure. You know, those are the key aspects of tip cow, and then Jim Lim. Jim Lim is more, I believe, to be like the hands. You could still develop sticky back, and we used to do this one drill where palm here, then I roll, and so I'm still developing sticky, and then I turn you around, and then I palm you, and you're developing this stickiness and learning to maneuver around, and then palm here, and then I'm learning to maneuver around you by still sticking with my back. So I know what to do if ever in this type of situation, that like if you are going this direction, then I can measure and feel, in the back. But I mainly think about Jim Lim, the sticky hand. So the technical term for sticky hands on how we play hands is Jim Lim style. But we always say playing hands, but I guess it would be sticky hands, Jim Lim style. So for the Mantis, we do Jim Lim style. As like Wing Chun will say Chi style, right? But then Mantis will say Jim Lim style. And the way that we train the stickiness is these circles. So we start off doing the circle, and then one person will try to remove the hand, and then this other person's role is to still stay stuck. And if I try to remove the hand, but again, this is not fighting, it's just developing a certain skill set so that it takes over at a time when, I feel, I'm able to control, and then boom, that stickiness, the feel, the measuring should be built into the tools in here, this range, in here, all the feel. So I think that's all I wanted to say about that. So from here, yielding, returning, emptying, leaking, seizing, linking, plucking, parrying, circling, pressing, collapsing, upward glancing. So this is that 12 soft form.